every Jew in the world, every non-Jew that understands the danger of the spread of evilness from China, from Russia, from Iranians around the world, from the third world, any good person has to support us in the war.
Shalom and welcome to another show of In Our Neighborhood. I'm sitting with Erez Eshel, who's both the founder of much of the leadership institutes in this country, but also an incredible individual with an incredible story of the last 8 months of war of this country. And I want to go back with you to the events of October 7th. On the morning of October 7th, we all heard the same news. Some had a little more information, some had a little less. Some of us waited for the army, myself included. The army said, hold on a couple hours, you're going to get your orders, and then you'll know where to go. And some of us, like you, didn't wait for orders. They made a leadership decision, and in your case, you also led others, and took whatever weapons they had and went down to Gaza.
6:30 in the morning, I get a phone call from my son that was on duty. I have 3 kids now that are fighting. My wife is so courageous. And he calls me and says, Daddy, a war started. And it's like immediate. I go to the Mechina, I wake the kids, and I ask, who is coming with me? I never go alone. Leadership is a team. And I find myself heading to Zikim. And what I faced, I couldn't expect, like no one. When I go into the base of Zikim, it's a war zone. One of the times when I head out of Zikim base, I see someone that is dressed with black, with a vest on him, holding something, running towards us. I have already a rifle of soldiers that were killed. And I aim to shoot him. And he bends on his knees, raises his hands, screams, I'm a Jew, they're slaughtering us on the beach. I was the first one to get to the beach. What I've seen there had changed my life. When you said we spoke about leadership, everything I've said about leadership on the last 27 years has to change. I saw the kids that were slaughtered on the beach. They were murdered. Each one with a bullet in his head. You could see them cuddling each other, holding. You could see the eyes that are looking at the Arab. Again, when I went to serve in the Israeli army, I'm a son of a Holocaust survivor. Always in my mind, there was the imagination of my father and his brother as the Jewish kid that is raising his hands above his head in the Holocaust. And I swore in my life that I will commit my life that a Jewish child, a Jewish will never raise his hands again. That's the reason I'm a warrior. That's the reason I educate in the academies for leadership, the best warriors, the best officers. That's the reason all of my kids are serving and will serve. And my grandkids. But Jewish kids did raise their hands. Everything had collapsed. Later on, my wife calls me. She says, Yossi Bachar, one of my closest friends from the army. We can't reach him. The moment you hear a friend from the army, you are like a machine. I head to Be'eri. I go to look to him, for him, into the kibbutz. But then already I have time to look, first time on my phone, and few of my friends that knew that I'm there were sending me texts that their kids are in the Nova party. Go and look for them. They send me locations. In the evening, I get to the Nova location. I see one of the sites that, if it was the kids that were slaughtered on the Kim beach, that went to fish with their parents early in the morning, there in the Nova, when I go to look for kids of my friends, I see these young ladies that were tied to each other and they were burned to death. We called it the bonfires. Everything had collapsed. Everything had changed. Again, leadership is about, in the end, the way you build other leaders, but the first measure of leadership is the way you face a crisis, the way you define a crisis, identify a crisis, admit that it exists. Build a structure and abilities to face, and when it comes, transform a crisis into opportunity. The Jewish nation is in a crisis.
Let me challenge that, though. Did everything really change? Because if I follow what you've been saying for many years, and what I've heard you saying in the past, you and others who've trained leaders in this country, they always had a very strong story of there's good and there's evil. We're here as part of the forces of good to do good in the world. and there are evil people that face us. And I think most people thought it was a story, and we were brought back to reality on October 7th, and we face a force of biblical evil. It's no longer the story of our forefathers in this land. It's still our story today, fighting against evil in this land.
Your things are so precise, but it's more than what you say. We were naive, we were mistaken. Anyone my age, anyone that was in authority has to apologize in front of the young generation and say, Slicha, ta'iti, slicha. I apologize, I was mistaken.
Forgive me.
Forgive me. And in some ways, my generation is unforgivable because we are risking the future of our kids. We are risking the future of the Western civilization. We were so naive, and we were, in some way, without knowing, we were corrupted in thinking that this world is about parting, and instead of building a resilient generation. You know, I went once to visit the United States for a certain mission. I took with me one of my best warriors, Nader, he's a Druze. I wanted him to speak with my friend there. He said, when I used to ask my grandfather why we are with an alien and touched to the Jews, why we are one of them. And he used to say, my grandfather told me about the first Zionists on the 40s, how resilient, how strong they are. And he said, I want to connect my future with this nation that can achieve everything with the strength and with their good. Another looks and says, I'm looking today at Jews in the world, and you became so soft. And the Western young generation became so soft, and we have to change. We are risking our future. Evilness exists. If I used to say evilness existed only, the pure evilness in Nazi Germany, no, it exists next to us. You know, when I speak about the 7th of October, or about Simchat Torah, I speak about 5 phenomena. The first one, our blindness. How couldn't we read all of the signs? But the second one, how many people in Gaza had knew 12 hours before that they're going to attack us? On that time, 17,000 Palestinians used to come and work every day. Even one of them didn't pick his phone to call the family that hosted him. Be aware, keep away from Ashkelon. You are endangering your life. There is evilness, there is, and I saw the pure evilness. I saw the rapers. I saw the murderers. I saw how did they torn kids to two. We were naive, and it won't happen anymore. The world is changing. A new generation will come of strong Jews and strong Western people. If we will compromise with this strength, we won't exist as free Jews or free Western culture. Simple.
I think that's a powerful statement. I think many people in the world who try to impose our values on our enemies. And October 7th was, I experienced this, many of my soldiers did. It was a rude awakening of how biblical this clash is. And you got up and said, and I say this specifically because you're a high-ranking officer in the army, because you have experience, because you've trained many of the leaders, you look at the system and say, it doesn't matter what the system is doing right now, I'm going to go and solve the problem myself. And I want to know why you did that when many other people didn't.
My question is, how so many haven't done it? What happened to us? I have big questions about so many people that have waited.
Yeah.
I had founded more than 50 leadership institutes. I faced very deep questions about people that were in management positions. Where were you on the first 12 hours? Why did you wait? You know, to do what you are expected to do is simple. You do it in any society. To do what you are expected to do as a Jew, and to be a Jew is to be brave. It's from Abraham. Before he learns Torah, he's a warrior. He sees a war between the 4 and 5 kings. And you are repeating something so strong. It's a biblical time.
Of course.
Abraham is a warrior. Jacob is a warrior. Moses is a warrior. David the king is a warrior. Jews, before anything, are warriors. They see evil. They have to face it. In Gaza, in Rafah, I was there when the soldiers, 8 soldiers were killed. I was there with Givati, I was there with Maglan, I was there with the tank warriors that they are the top 401. You see the courage of them, but they remind us to be a Jew is to be a strong Jew. וכי ידיו של משה עושות מלחמה.
Yeah.
We have to have the hands of Moses. Okay, the world is changing, and you know.
I don't think it's changing. The world has been the same for a very long time. We've chosen to ignore it. Those are your words. We've chosen to ignore the reality. We chose to ignore the reality because the West doesn't want to acknowledge that there is pure evil out there. And the reason they don't want to acknowledge it is not because they're afraid of the information. It's because if you're an honest person with a conscience and you know that someone is bent, is devoted to violence, is devoted to destruction, you have to act against it. So we chose to ignore the truth, chose to ignore the fact that Iran is, they've said for decades, we will kill Israel, we will kill the Americans. We chose to ignore Hezbollah, we've chosen to ignore Hamas, chose to ignore many other terrorist organizations. And October 7th was what every people needs, a moment of pain and humiliation to remember what's true and what's important.
I'm listening to you, and your words, everyone has to listen to them. I mean it. You say it so clear. We are not willing to pay the price of facing evilness ongoing on. We do not understand we have to be warriors as long as we are strong and in shape. To be willing, anyone that there is evilness, not only the ones that is against you, but against any freedom, we have to be there to fight. We have to have a big and strong army. If we won't wake up, Europe, the great civilization of Europe, is going to vanish. America won't be the same if they won't wake up. And if you will let me add, I'll say, in the United States, there are forces that doesn't want Israel to exist. That 100% of Ivy League universities in the United States accepted that the students would shout, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. 2,000 years, the world used to say, Jews go to Palestine. Now they tell us, Jews go out of Palestine, but you are not wanted and you are unwanted nowhere in the world. And there isn't even one professor to philosophy or to history who would say 80 years after the Holocaust, it's unacceptable so that there will be one professor that will tear his degree, that will resign. No one. And then you understand, if the Jews are not good and strong, or strong and good, to be weak is amoral behavior. Because the moment Jews are really strong, that we can hold a sword and do not mess with us, the world respects you. Mm-hmm. You know, in my division, 2,500 soldiers were badly injured. Mm-hmm. Injured, we count the ones that were taken to hospital. 74% of them have returned to battlefield.
Wow.
Take Givati. 60% of heads of companies were all killed or injured. Some of them 2 and 3 times. Anyone that is injured and can returns back. They do not stop. Today, how many courageous soldiers do we have? We have more than 300,000 warriors like you and others that are willing to sacrifice their life. You have 3 kids. You want to see them. You want to see them marrying, having kids, getting to bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah. But still we are willing to sacrifice our life for the sake of the Jewish people and the Jewish state and the Western world and the values. And we understand we are not alone anymore. We do understand the purpose. We do understand what we are fighting for. We do understand how big is the confusion. No one can stop us. How long? How big will be the price? We do not know. We pray that it will be. But most probably, there will be a big price.
There always is. There always is.
It might be more than 1%.
People get confused. They read the Bible, if they're Bible-reading people, and they see only the part of the promise, but they ignore the hardship. God always promised. He never said it would be easy. And it never was or will be easy. It always comes with a sacrifice. But as long as we're clear about that, as long as we're clear about the enemy, who the enemy is, we get the promise. I think that's the miracle of the biblical story, the miracle of why we're here in this land.
We have a mission. We have a mission to build there in Eretz Israel an exemplary society that is the strongest society that goes and fights anywhere in the world. Education, big families of good. We have to get You know, in Parashat HaShavua, this Parashat HaShavua, בעלותך, there is a parasha about the movement of Aron HaBrit.
And the Ark of the Covenant.
And if you go deep, it's a time, we are close to that time, that there are 20 million Jews that are committed to the mission, and the mission is to be strong, and with values, and with action of values, then the world starts moving with us. So we will have to win the war together. This war is the war of every Jew in the world. It's a war of every non-Jew that has the morals, and there are hundreds of millions of non-Jewish people that they do understand that they want Am Israel to live life of an example. And I want to go into it a bit more. We believe in 70 nations. We do not believe that everyone has to be a Jew. We believe that every nation has to live their own life of greatness, of freedom. And we have a responsibility to be there for them, to help them, to be a place that everyone comes to Jerusalem and is blessed by Jerusalem. We have to have the power of blessing. And we have to see the uniqueness of every other nation in the world, every Jew in the world, every non-Jew that understands the danger of the spread of evilness from China, from Russia, from Iranians around the world, from the third world. Any good person has to support us in the war.
Erez, I want to thank you for everything you said, and I want to highlight some of the important things, I think, for our viewers. Is you speak of a model of leadership that, first of all, sets an example. It doesn't point, go do this. It says, I will do and you will follow. Forever, in every other junction we're going to reach in our life, we're going to remember that leadership starts with us and not waiting with other people to do it.
So let me, wait for a second. I have to say another thing. The whole interview, I'm holding myself not to cry. Since the war, many things changed. The way I wake up in the morning, the way I eat. Minimum once a week, sometimes the whole week, I sleep on the floor. As long as there are hostages, I sleep on the floor. If I go abroad, I sleep only on the floor. I put a blanket on the floor, not even on a mattress, to remember what's happening. It's not only the hostages, it's their families. Mm-hmm. It's the soldiers, the courageous soldiers that for 8 months are 24/7 with the gears on them, with conditions you can't imagine. Wednesday morning, very early, I have to leave home. My wife gives me a cup of coffee on the entrance and looks at me and says, I have a question. When she refers to me with a question, I say, Liat, no questions, I have to go back fighting. No, you will answer me. Liat, please, how many times it crosses your mind to worry for our 3 kids that are fighting? I said, Liat, please, Erez, answer me. How many times it crosses your mind? I said, what? If anything will happen to one of them? Yeah. Said, you want me to really answer? Yeah, I want you to answer. Yeah, it does crosses my mind that maybe, God forbid, we will get in use. Yeah. And she said, then what? I don't want to answer. Then what? Liat, then, God forbid, we will have a funeral. And then what? Then we will sit not more than an hour, Shiva, and I will return fighting until we win. She kisses me, she says, with such a husband I wanted to get married, go and fight and don't return until we win. And do not return home. And that's the reason I'm in reserve. And she said, do not return until you secure the future of Am Yisrael. That's our wives, that's our mothers, they're the best. That's the reason we're going to win.
Amen. Erez, thank you for this message of encouragement and challenge. It's been a fascinating conversation. And it all ties back to the same thing, a strong answer to the sense of why we're here and what this nation is supposed to do. Guys, if you want to see more content like this fascinating conversation with Erez Eshel, make sure to subscribe and follow us on every platform. It means a lot to us because we really care about the connection with you, our viewers. To continue making more content like this, we need you to support this work. Get behind us with a small monthly donation or a one-time donation on any one of our platforms. It really means a lot to us to know that people are supporting the work we're creating here in Israel. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.